Okay, so let's talk about Richard Allen. We've all had a little bit of time to process the incredible news recently that an arrest has been made in the Delphi case after 5, almost 6 long years of waiting. And obviously, we're all waiting for this press conference, which is due to take place tomorrow. But overnight, I've been doing some thinking about Richard Allen and how this potentially links to Keegan Kline. I think it would be incredible for me, it would be absolutely astounding if Keegan Kline is in no way connected to Richard Allen. And I think the first thing that tips me off to that is actually the behaviour of Keegan Kline post the murders. The trip to Vegas, the sort of suspicious web searches when he's away. You know, how long does DNA last on a body? Can law enforcement trace IPs via social media? And all that sort of stuff. Very, very odd and suspicious behaviour by Keegan Kline after these murders had taken place. Now, the potential connection between these individuals comes in the form, in my opinion, of the Emily Ann account. I found a post on Reddit yesterday which states the following. Emily Ann said, quote, "He's almost 43 though." This excerpt from the Emily Ann 45 text transcripts as recorded in Keegan Kline's 2020 police interview never made sense to me in the context of Tony Kline being the secondary user on the account. Tony Kline would have been 47 at the time the messages were sent. Richard Allen, he would have just turned 43. So I believe Richard Allen would have been either 43 or 44 during the time that these chat transcripts actually took place, or these chat logs took place. And we had this Emily Ann character who was talking to an underage girl by all accounts. And, you know, there's often been rumours that this was a shared account. The Anthony Shots was a shared account. They were sharing devices or selling devices. But the Emily Ann account, I think there's every possibility here that Richard Allen was a secondary user of that account. Interestingly, on another YouTube channel last night by the name Grey Hughes Investigates, he was conducting a live stream and he also mentioned this Emily Ann name. He stated the following, quote, "One of Richard Allen's direct nephew's wives is named Emily Ann." Now this was via some research that he had conducted himself, so big shout out to him for that. But again here we're having this connection, this Emily Ann name being connected with Richard Allen. We also have the chat logs, which around that time period and the age that was given in those chat logs, I'm nearly 43 or almost 43. That matches up with Richard Allen. It doesn't match either Tony or Keegan Kline. So, as I say, could we be looking at here a user of the Emily Ann account? I think it's also interesting when we take a look back at Keegan Kline's own police interview and the transcripts from those conversations. The officer says to him, "From your Dropbox account off your phone, we have started one of the largest CSAM investigations ever undertaken in the state of Indiana." Now, albeit, as I say, we don't have the press conference until tomorrow, but everything at this point in time, at least for me personally, is pointing in the direction of some sort of ring here, some sort of web of CSAM exchanges, indecent material exchanges between multiple individuals. And as I said in yesterday's video, potentially that Keegan Kline facilitated the meet with the girls for Richard Allen. And then obviously what happened, what transpired after that, you know, took place, the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. But I don't think we can discredit, as I say, Keegan Kline's behaviour post the murders, these odd web searches, the searching for Sandy Hook bodies. Now, when I saw that, and when I read the police interview, if Keegan Kline wasn't actually involved, he had no actual physical dealings in the murders himself, this web search comes across to me as some kind of morbid curiosity. Maybe Keegan Kline knew that these murders were going to take place, maybe he didn't, maybe, as I say, he simply facilitated the meet with Richard Allen and these girls. But to me, as I say, that web search is quite telling, and it gives me the impression of a morbid curiosity, of not being there personally, but wanting to kind of see what the crime scene looked like, or how it may have appeared. And the closest he could come to that was by searching the poor victims of the Sandy Hook massacre. It's absolutely disturbing, to be perfectly honest, to think that someone would be even curious to know what that crime scene looked like. But as I say, we're going to learn more in the coming days. I have a feeling that we're not actually going to hear that much tomorrow in the press conference, but I hope that they will give us some detail regarding the arrest and what happens next, a little bit of information. But as I say, that remains to be seen at this point. Now, some other potential connections between these individuals in terms of Richard Allen and the Kleins come in the form of a P.O. box. Now, I can't confirm this personally, but I have read that there is a P.O. box registered in Peru which is tied to Richard Allen, and that also Richard Allen resided in Peru at some point in time very close to the Klein residence. So I think with everything considered here, there's every possibility that there's a very strong link, a very strong tie between the Kleins and Richard Allen. Many people will say, well, why has it taken so long? Why has it taken the police so long to bring in Richard Allen? And I think we only really need to look at the Kleins' behaviour, particularly where their devices are concerned. They were very, very slack in terms of hiding their identity, of even using the dark web or VPNs, anything like that. They were basically accessing this material on the surface web. The Kleins were conducting these bizarre searches out on the open web. How long does DNA last on a body? Sandy Hook victims' bodies. Looking at unsolved cases. All very, circumstantial, but they weren't bothered about hiding their activity. That's what I'm trying to say here. Either they weren't very forensically aware electronically, or they just, simply didn't care. But they were conducting these chats, as I say, out on the open web. They weren't particularly astute in hiding their activity. And I think with Richard Allen, we may be looking at the complete opposite here. What sticks out in the back of my mind, or what sticks in the back of my mind, I should say, is the fact that we had Liberty German's cell phone recovered from the crime scene. Now, if this individual who murdered these girls had been in direct contact, on the phone, he was, sending the messages to facilitate or arrange the meeting for that day, then surely he would have taken that phone with him, or at least tried to destroy it. But that doesn't appear to be the case. Now, I can't say for certain that this phone wasn't under some leaves and he just didn't find it, but he did seem to have a certain amount of time at the crime scene after these murders were committed to stage the bodies and remove items of clothing. So it wasn't like he was disturbed and he had to run, he had to leave the scene ASAP. He had a certain amount of time to conduct activities that he wished to conduct after these murders had taken place. And as I say, it may well be that we're simply looking at someone here who was a lot more forensically aware, at least electronically. This was someone who had a wife, who had kids. So he was able to hide his activity to some degree, at least from his family, we imagine. So there's every possibility here, as I say, that this individual was a lot more clued up in terms of electronic forensics compared to that of Keegan Kline. Keegan Kline's activity was very brash, wasn't it? Very out there. Wasn't trying to hide anything at all. And I think what's going to happen in this case is that it's going to turn out that he was a hidden person, so to speak. And it took a lot of persuading Keegan Kline to actually turn on this guy or turn him in, because Keegan Kline is also linked to the murders. Albeit he may not have committed them physically, he could well have facilitated the meet for that day. Now, clearly, the majority of what I've said there is, as I say, pure speculation, and we're going to learn more in the coming days and weeks concerning the Delphi murders. But I would be really, really shocked if it turns out to be anything other than some kind of ring here, some kind of CSAM ring which has finally been cracked, and the perpetrator of this crime has finally been arrested. As I say, we have the press conference tomorrow, which I plan to cover in some detail, so do join me for that. And as always, many thanks for joining me for this particular video. I look forward to seeing you all again for the next one. Take care. Cheers.